Hey, this is Rob Anspach, and welcome back to another edition of E-Heroes. Today's going to be a little different. We're going to talk about letting shit go. As
Mm,
entrepreneurs, I think we bottle up a lot of stuff. We don't know where to vent. Pandemic really affected our mindset. And I'm bringing back a guest who was on episode 53. His name's Case Erickson. And I think we're going to have a nice conversation about how to let shit go. And you guys all know what I mean. So, Case, thank you for being here. And I know it's been a couple years, but I appreciate you taking the time to be here.
yeah, thank you for having me for sure. It'll be good to catch up and really dissect whatever it is. We hear this notion of letting go and it's kind of like easier said than done, right?
No,
It's
but
like
I watched your journey, and you were starting to skyrocket with the book, with helping restaurants, with doing all kinds of great stuff. And then the pandemic hit, and then
uh-huh.
I thought, man, he's just going to crawl up like in a ball and cry to the world, and I think most entrepreneurs did at one point.
Yeah. Well, it's I can only speak for myself, but I'm sure that there are plenty of entrepreneurs that ride this razor thin edge of cash flow
Hmm.
slash lack of cash flow slash investing every blood, sweat, tear, and dime
Hmm.
into their business. And my experience was, coming from the restaurant industry and having, owned and operated, opened, from the ground up, one restaurant, and then another restaurant, and then a third restaurant, basically having um, three kids, or I'm sorry, three restaurants and two kids within 5 years. And this was back in like 2005 to 2010. So, I often, kind of default to always having something to create or something to manage. There's this beauty in chaos type of thing, or maybe comfort in chaos that was no longer works for me. But I was running that program for many years, and even this money program that for whatever reason maybe I could congratulate myself for pulling shit off on such a razor thin edge, when the reality was that when you ride that and you something like the pandemic happens,
Hmm.
where it's like, oh, guess what, I don't have a year's worth of expenses saved up,
Hmm.
um and all my usual rabbits that I could pull out of the hat were quote unquote not allowed, right? Producing food truck festivals, food truck events, Girl Scout cookie and whiskey tasting events, food truck tours, brewery tours, all these types of things, in the event space, and also providing event production support for other corporations.
Right.
That was out. I did have a handful of consulting clients and coaching clients that I kept up. But it just was not the level of, I guess, couldn't weather the pandemic storm for as long as it went on.
Yeah.
So it's the larger lesson that I got to learn was, a really really deep space of surrender, and surrender in a way that I could not have possibly imagined. It's like my quote unquote worst fear became realized when I got evicted from my home, and it was just like, could not pull it off. I could not borrow anymore, and I think that was the, I don't want to say straw that broke the camel's back, but really brought me to that. Okay, I give up. Whatever is out there in terms of, I would call myself a recovering Southern Baptist, or a recovering Christian, or a recovering fundamentalist,
Hmm.
all these toxic negative programs that, was kind of like a dictator,
Right.
invisible sky grandpa, out to get me, oh, suffering is holy. I get some brownie points if I suffer, but really what I learned through a lot of my work with, actually a 12-step program, Debtors Anonymous, which has been really, really great. to provide that support was really, this surrender and this willingness to admit that I'm not the, center of I'm not the center of everything and in control of everything, and really leaning into this notion that we are a reflection of this greater power or whatever. And so, it's been a beautiful, amazing journey of restoration that I have seen, having my home restored, a better home than what I had before.
Hmm.
Just the energy of it is so much better. Seeing the support that just came out of the woodwork for me. I mean, client, because I have family. I was kind of a little bit estranged from my family, to where it wasn't like I didn't have that familial support system here in Austin.
Hmm.
And so, kind of like couch surfing on my client, with my clients, and
Yeah.
just like getting to this really, really deep layer of authenticity and vulnerability that I never expected myself to do. I always wanted the convenient vulnerability, or like, oh, look, I'm so vulnerable about X, Y, or Z, but I don't really want anybody to know about A, B, or C. But really getting to that place where it's like, you know what, this happened, and now what are we going to do now? How do I, quote unquote, get out of it without losing? It's like letting shit go, but also not losing my shit.
Yeah. But I
So
also noticed a general um change in the way you post to social media. Your
mm,
tone is different.
okay.
Your level of happiness is better. You know,
Mm,
you're not kind of blaming past things. You're
mm,
saying, "Hey, this is what I'm gonna do now, and into the future."
mhm,
And I think that people were embracing that better.
mm. Well, I know for me, it definitely took something to kind of come out, right? So, um, when I wrote the book, my book in like 2018, 2019, or something like that, I just feel between the pandemic and, losing my home and losing the business, I feel completely different. So there are parts of my book where it's just like I don't know if I even agree with myself now. But there are still some good parts in there. I was reading it the other day. So I'm like, okay, there's still some valid pieces in there. But really this persona that I had presented to the world via social media,
Mhm.
um as this quote unquote coach who had it all together, or was able to manage this, that, or the other, to come out of the, I don't want to, I guess, homeless closet, if you want to call it that, took like, oh no, what is ever, this facade that I built up. And, so that was all an opportunity for me to deconstruct the
Mhm.
illusion of my ego
Mhm.
that was reflected online. And that's not to say I was completely inauthentic before then. I just reached a deeper layer of like, you know what? It's okay not to have it all together. If
Mhm.
you think I have it all together, guess what? I don't. And we hear that, but
Mhm.
I was very reluctant to post the things that I posted, but I know from my past experience that that's
Mhm.
how I navigate, and that's how
Right.
I grow, and that's how I provide the space for authentic transformation.
Well, even in our first interview, even a couple years ago, that whole title was authentic momentum, and
Mhm.
even though things have changed for you, and maybe your persona has changed a little, you're still being authentic. It's
Yeah.
just a new authentic, and it's the way you're adapting to the world now.
Mhm. Yeah, and I've really seen the beauty of gratitude, and really seeing the opportunity to, in each and every moment. That's how I was like, okay, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. And I didn't know, Rob. I mean, like I mean, it was just crazy to think back. It's like I don't know how I made it some days, other than, okay, I'm not giving up. Drinking's not an option. I'll be 4 years sober in June. Yay.
Mm.
um and so, really letting myself be with
Mhm.
reality, and like, okay, I'm still going to meditate. I'm still going to do, my nutrition protocol and my movement protocol and my yoga and, stuff like that. And I'm going to find a way.
Mhm.
And I'm choosing to see the good. And it's not, it's very interesting because I believe that before 2020, yeah, 20 and 21 were just like kind of a blur for me. So I'll just say before 2020, it was like I practiced gratitude from a space of obligation,
Mhm.
like, it's the right thing to do, or a manipulative way of like, okay, if I'm going to express gratitude, so then I'm going to get my stuff,
Right.
and running underneath that was, I don't have enough stuff, I'm scared, I'm going to lose my stuff. I need to be grateful, I need to be grateful, like I need to be grateful. And it just, I think getting to this quote unquote rock bottom, if you want to call it that, or the loss of self and just a really true like surrender, really brought about the possibility for me to be genuinely grateful. Like, okay, I'm grateful that, or I was grateful that I could sell what I needed to sell just to get a storage unit, to get a U-Haul, to get my friends, to help, my friends who helped me move, the couch surf. Like, I was genuinely grateful, and I think that was what shifted for me. It was not to say I wasn't genuinely grateful before, but just really, really, truly, like, wow, like such a sense of gratitude. And
Mhm.
I mean, and every day kind of unfolded like that. Other homeless guy gave me a T-shirt off his back that said Hawaii on it. It was from whatever that show is, McLovin. Is it Super Bad? I don't know if you've seen that.
Um,
But yeah, just beautiful expressions of gratitude and support, and money miracles left and right. I mean, so many money miracles. I mean, one example is my uh I don't know if I should say, but because he said so, some confident, well, it was, he told me in confidence, so I'll just
yeah.
say like a random $3,000 bill was paid off on my behalf, and just like
Nice.
stuff like that. And
Mhm.
finding a place, I mean, in the Austin market, it's just, I mean, to have any kind of blip on your credit, you might as well have you might as well be a sex offender in
Mhm.
this market, because it's so competitive. I mean, buy, rent, everything is competitive. So, just being able to find a house
Yeah.
was a miracle. So, really, really, for me, dropping into the miraculous of every day, and just really being like, I don't have all the answers, and that's okay.
Mhm.
I'm on the way. I don't have everything I want, but I have everything I need.
Yeah.
And it was a beautiful experience, and I got to live in some really, really nice houses. I was house sitting and pet sitting and couch surfing, and I brought my kids with me a handful of times, and thankfully their mother, my ex-wife, she was able to keep them for the majority of the time. But when I was able to take them, I was able to do so. And one of their comments was, geez, Dad, are all your friends rich? I was like, yes, they are.
Yeah.
And that was just, I mean, and not just rich monetarily. My friends have, they're, it's good. I always say I want to be the dumbest person in the room. I want to be the poorest person in the room, because who's next, right?
But
Who's,
they
just
weren't
lift each
just
other up.
right. They weren't just rich with money, but they were rich with friendship, and they helped you
Yes,
get to that
yes,
next level in your journey.
yeah.
I can see from your posts. I mean, you're a lot happier now, and you got a dog, and I look at that dog, and the dog's like looking up to you, going, "That's just the greatest moment of my life." And it just some of the posts that you put down there, it just I hate to look back and say, "Hey, look, you look like you were a grumpy fool." That's not the case. It's just
Yeah.
you look more happy now because you have a little buddy that you can take with you.
Oh my God, he is the best sidekick, and that was not even anything that I was planning at all.
Mhm.
I'm just minding my own business. And this is interesting. This is actually I believe I was still in my home. I had gotten, gotten the eviction notice, and I was just like, you know what, I'm going to keep doing my thing, and I'm going to work, and I'm going to trust, and whatever. And so I'm just, riding, walking down the trail, doing my exercises. I see this lady walking this little cute dog, and a little cute white dog, and I'm like, oh my god, can I pet your dog? And she, the dog looks so much like a Jack Russell Terrier that I had probably 15 years ago, at
Hmm.
least, maybe more than that. Total love of my life at the time. Long story short, he got hit by a car, and his time was, kind of cut short. And it was like, oh, no other dog will ever be Elmo. Yeah, Elmo was his name. And I was like, if I ever get a dog, he has to find me like Elmo did. We have to, I had all these stipulations that pretty much made it. I'm like, it has to be a Jack Russell Terrier, has to be a puppy. I mean, it should really be a rescue too, because I don't want to pay a breeder. And so it was just like impossible, really, that it was ever gonna happen. But so I stopped this lady walking this little adorable white dog on the trail, and I'm petting this dog, and I'm having all these Elmo flashbacks. I'm like, oh my god, this is Elmo. Elmo's reincarnated, and I'm having all these moments, and I'm like, she's like, oh, he's a naughty boy. I was like, oh, is he a naughty boy? Are you a naughty boy? Do you need a naughty daddy? And she's like, yeah. Do you want him? And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, I'm his foster mom, and he goes up for adoption tomorrow. And a year later, here we are. So I left the two of them at the park, and I said, I'm just gonna regret if I don't at least try
Hmm.
to adopt him. I'm gonna regret it. I have to at least try. And so it's kind of one of those things where I was like, I don't have the money. I'm like, so I did a GoFundMe for the dog adoption. My friend, I used my friend's address, because like I'm not even allowed to have a pet where I was before. I'm like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna go to my landlord who's in the process of evicting me and be like, can I get a puppy? Like, seriously, what psychopath does that? I mean, it was really like not smart behavior in the grand scheme of things. But it was kind of one of those things where I felt like he was going to be a little bit of an angel and a little bit of a salvation for me, and he really was, because there were some days where it's just like, oh God, I didn't, and I had to get outside.
Hmm.
It was non-negotiable. I can't stay in bed, all day. I've got to get out, and I believe, there's power in nature, and there's power when we get out in the fresh air, and we connect to the invisible things that are all around us. And he really was a conduit. I tell everybody he was my soulmate, my angel for some really dark times that he got me through. So
Well, and yeah, sometimes you have to say yes to an opportunity, even though deep down you think, "Ah, this is going to turn out to be a pain in the ass," but it doesn't. It creates whole new things for you that you didn't know was possible.
yeah, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
So it just. So what are you doing now? I mean, you did restaurants, you did all this other great stuff.
Hmm.
Are you back in the restaurants? Are you back
You know what?
consulting?
I'm not. I have, so I got what I tell people is my recovery job. And that's been really, really great, because it's, and I had a couple clients on retainer, which was really great, marketing, social media, that type of
Mhm.
stuff. I definitely enjoy marketing, PR, so
Yeah, who
promotion.
who does that anymore?
What do you mean, who does that anymore? Everybody
Marketing.
does it.
No, nobody does marketing. I'm just joking. It's what I do.
Everyone and their mother. Yeah.
Uh,
So, those clients were nice to have on retainer, and the businesses that I was doing that for, they sold.
yeah,
And so those kind of, went by the wayside. But congruently, I had started this Facebook group called Men Who Shine.
nice.
And, kind of teeter tottered with, kind of similar to this format, doing interviews and podcasting. And right now, I think I've got about 10 episodes up on YouTube. But that has definitely grown. I have a sober coach. I do sober coaching, for people who don't really resonate with the 12 steps,
Mhm.
talking about kind of my holistic approach with meditation and nutrition and nature and movement and dance and all these other things that I have done to help cope with fear and anxiety, which was the reason that I drank. It was like, oh, I need to relax, or I need to be myself, or this, that, or the other. So, these clients have come out from the woodwork, and it's very rewarding. My work around it is, to keep myself clear.
Mhm.
So that group has been really good. It's about up to about 4,000 members.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's just a place for, I think that we're in this space of wanting to take on, what are we doing here and what's going on. The gift in the pandemic was it really allowed a lot of people to evaluate their lives, and really ask themselves what they're doing, and how are they making a difference in the world, and all these other things. So, I'm being of service in that group. I do interior design, interior landscape design as well. So plants, moss walls, living walls, anything that you can think of involving nature inside for commercial applications, so office and restaurants and things like this. And I have just really, I don't know how I can put it into words, but there's like plant magic. And before my house, like I was always a nature buff, but never had plants inside my
Mhm.
home. I was like, I always killed them, or I don't know, maybe I saw them as an unnecessary expense, like a luxury, like, oh, you don't really need them. It's,
Mhm.
when I quote unquote make more money or whatever. It's very interesting too. As I'm filing taxes and doing all these things for previous years, I'm like, oh, I made a lot of money that year. Like, oh, the problem wasn't money, the problem was me.
Mhm.
Just like learning responsibility and stuff like that. But the plants that I have found have just bring this connection, this connection that I have in nature. It's
Mhm.
just like a little bit of life in the home space. So
Mhm.
now I'm kind of obsessed with plants. That's a new thing that came about from the pandemic, that I really enjoy. Talking about doing a retreat in the fall for the men who shine, really
Mhm.
kind of transformation retreat, breath work, fire, all the things. And starting my second book, Hot Mess Mustard Seed, The Rocky Road of Delusional Faith. So that one is, I got very clear um, this weekend actually on that title. So you see a little time left. Are we on a little ticker
Yeah,
timer
it's
there?
weird. I think Zoom changed some things, and now they're limiting me to a certain amount of time, which is
That
crazy.
is
But
so rude, Zoom.
we gotta let that shit go too.
That's right.
Yeah, don't be on a time commitment.
I know.
Darn Zoom. But yeah, I really like what you're doing, and I like the fact that you have now given yourself an opportunity that didn't exist before, but can actually, I mean, it was born out of the pandemic,
Mhm.
and now you're creating environments inside workspaces
Mhm.
so that other people, you know, stay happy. Because I've
Yeah.
noticed a lot of times I go into restaurants now and they have plants that they didn't have before, but people walk in and they smile now, and
Yeah.
they feel happy, and it's just great, and it's just, I think for you it's just gonna, I think it's gonna be an interesting opportunity. And
Yeah.
the whole Facebook group, yes, you created it, yes, you're helping all these people, but it also gives you accountability. It
Mhm.
keeps you, I can't say on the straight and narrow because we know that straight doesn't always work.
The gay and narrow?
but it's going to keep you to, a perspective that says, hey, this is what you're doing and this is why you're doing it. And I think there's going to be so many guys that reach out to you and say, look, I'm so glad that you're here.
Yeah, I mean, it's been really beautiful. And the other thing that I wanted to say that had shifted for me is just, not having to have it all figured out.
Hmm.
My mom said, if faith, one of the things that my mom said that I appreciate is, if faith required a blueprint, it wouldn't be called faith at all.
Hmm.
So, and I'm not talking about faith in Jesus, Christianity. It's just faith, like a belief
Right.
in whatever, the vision that pulls you to do the thing. You go and do the thing, and you don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to know every step, because you're going to take step A, B, and C, and then D, E, and F are going to be different,
Mhm.
just because you started. So why even bother trying to have it all figured out? So one of the things that has helped me, as an entrepreneur, as a, business minded, and like, where am I going? What am I doing? How is this happening? When is this going to happen? And la 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 la, is just to serve. You
Mhm.
know, show up and be of service. And that's not. I don't mean like volunteer. I mean in to my clients, whether they're in a job, or an entrepreneur, or a coaching client, or wherever they are. That help. Just I'm just here to serve, and I'm going to serve today to the best of my ability, and one day at a time. And it's not that I'm sitting on $1 million right now, but I have more money than I've had in a very long time.
Mhm.
And I'm implementing systems. I'm not shaming myself, I'm not making myself wrong, I'm not
Right.
blaming my parents, I'm not like I'm done with the blame game, and really
Right.
adulting at the ripe old age of 45. um Everybody's got their time, everybody's got their journey. But I think that that's just part of it. It's being of service, and being grateful, and that letting go, like, every single day,
Yeah.
like every single day, and like trusting that intuition, and moving into that space of trust, because I grew up in a space that was not like, it was like, I'm untrustworthy, I'm fundamentally flawed, I am evil,
Mhm.
I cannot be trusted, don't trust myself. And so really getting to the space of trusting myself, and invisible sky grandpa, who's a lover and not a dictator,
Right.
right? So
Yeah,
yeah,
and
it's
and so we all let that shit go. So there you go. So
exactly.
how do people get a hold of you? Where do they go?
I can be reached at caseerickson.com is probably the easiest, and then Case Erickson on all the socials, on all the socials.
On the socials.
But yeah,
So everybody, I want you to. I guess Zoom is telling me I'm running out of time, but I
Zoom
want
God.
I want everyone to go to caseerickson.com, find Case's old book, buy it, read it, support him, and then when he comes out with his new book, buy that, buy a couple of them, send them out to your friends, and and even send some bones to his dog, because I mean his dog is really cute.
He really is.
Yeah,
He's
I
a
mean,
little
and
demon, but he's a sweetheart.
yeah, or send money. I mean, the dog needs money too for whatever.
My
So
God,
this
yeah.
is great, and I want everyone to reach out, find Case on all the socials. I always find him on Facebook because that's where he posts a lot, but I think he's everywhere else too.
Yes, on my 2022 list is to actually have a functional, to take most of my content off of Facebook, get it on a blog like a proper person, who provides any kind, a proper author, I should say. Really start and building an offline network is my goal there. So,
Yeah,
goals. Everybody's got goals, Rob.
yeah. My goal is to stop being on Facebook, but that's where everybody is. It's
I
what
know.
it is. I don't do Snapchat. I don't
Uh-huh.
do Clubhouse. I don't do some of the other ones.
Uh-huh.
You know,
TikTok. You do TikTok? I
I'm
like to. That's where I post all my dance videos, is on
I'll be
TikTok.
53 this year, and I'm just getting to be a grumpy old guy. So I don't want to do all this other social. I just give me three of
Yeah.
them. I'll be good at it.
Yep.
So anyway, I hope you guys found this helpful. And Case is over in Austin, so go bug him and buy him some coffee and help him walk his dog. So until next time, we'll see you guys on the next episode. Adios.
Thank, thank you, Rob.